All right. So here is a reteaching or mini lesson of lesson 3-1, which is multiply greater numbers by the powers of 10. So this is basically a page out of the extra practice workbook that your students have, or that if you were the student watching this, that you have in your backpack that you take home every day. I believe this was a part of the e-learning packet that you all did. So just to go over it and kind of refresh your memory, if we take another look and we focus on this area right here, patterns, it says, can help you multiply by powers of 10, which is true. So if you notice, 53 times 1 is 53, because we know as fifth graders and as we know our multiplication facts, anything times 1 is itself. If I have one thing of 50, if I have 53 cookies in a box and I have one box, I'm still going to have 53 cookies. So 53 times 1 is 53. Now here, as we go down the list, 53 times 10 is 530. So basically all they did here was they took 53, they multiplied it by 1, and they placed this 0 at the end, which gives us 530. Continuing down the list, if we multiply 53 times 100, once again, they did the same thing. 53 times 1 is 53. But notice there are two zeros right here that they have to place at the end of that number, which is 5,300. Continuing down, if they have 53 times 1,000, once again, following the same pattern, anything times 1 is itself, so 53 times 1 is 53. And then 1,000 has three zeros at the end. So we're going to place those three zeros behind 53, which gives us 53,000. And then even getting bigger, 53 times 10,000. I'm taking 53, I'm multiplying it by 1. Anything times 1 is itself, so that is 53. But then how many zeros does 10,000 have in it? 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to place 4 zeros behind 53, and here's what they did. That gives me a total product of 530,000. If I were looking at it in terms of powers of 10, instead of the expanded form, because this is what we call expanded form, the powers of 10 makes things a little bit simpler. So we've got obviously 70 times 1. We know anything times 1 is itself, so that's obviously going to be 70. But if we do 70 times 10 to the first power, 70 times 1 is 70, right? But then we have this 1 right here, so that means we have to place one extra 0 behind the number 70, which is what they did here, and that gives me a product of 700. And they continued that all the way down. And so our little guy right here says, look at the number of zeros, or the exponent, for the power of 10. Place that number of zeros on the end of the factor. So every time you see a 2, a 3, or a 4, you're going to place that many zeros after the number 70. 70 already includes a 0. So if I did 70 times 10 to the second power, well, there's 70 right there. And sorry if I have to get a little louder, my air just kicked on. And then I have 2 as the exponent, so I place 2 zeros. So my answer is 7,000, and the same thing for 70 times 10 to the third and 70 times 10 to the fourth. So if we look at number 1, it says to find 61 times 1,000, place blank zeros on the end of the blank to form the product. Okay, so let's think about it. If we want to find 60 times 1,000, we need to place how many zeros on the end? How many zeros on the end? Well, I know that 1,000 has 3 zeros. So that means that 61 times 1,000, we're going to place 3 zeros on the end of the blank to form the product blank. On the end of the product, sorry, I was distracted. On the end of the product, and my marker is too big, so I can't really write that in the blank, but to find 61 times 1,000, place 3 zeros on the end of the product to form the product, and this is the answer because we're multiplying, it would be 61, 0, 0, 0. So if I start at the ones place and count backwards 3 numbers, 1, 2, 3, comma, it would be the product 61,000. Okay, so if we continue, and I'm going to have to move the camera, so bear with me a little bit. Okay, if we continue, and I'm going to try to find a smaller marker here. If we continue, 75, and it says in 2 through 5, use patterns to find the product. So you're still finding the pattern, just like you did right here at the top. So 75 times 1, that's 75 times itself, which is 75. You'll see that okay? Okay, and then 75 times 10, okay, well, I have a 1 right here, so I know it's going to start with 75, but I have a 0 that I have to place behind it, so my answer is 750. 75 times 1, I'm going to start with 75, but then there's 2 zeros I have to place behind it. Same thing for 75 times 1,000. I have 1, so I'm going to start with 75. Uh-oh, my marker's bleeding, I'm so sorry. And I've got 3 zeros that I have to place behind it. So that gives me a product of 75,000. And then the last one, 75 times 1, we're going to start with 75. And then we're going to count the zeros. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to put 4 zeros. And that's going to give me a product of 750,000. Okay, so this one you would solve just like number 3. So if you want to, during this recording, if you want to pause the problem and copy down numbers 3, you can do that one on your own to see if you can get the correct answer. But let's look at number 4. Okay, so this one uses powers of 10. Well, 60 times 1, we know is going to be 60 because anything times itself is 60. Or anything times 1 is itself, so that's going to be 60. 60 times 10 to the first power, that means I'm going to have to place a 0 after the number that I've multiplied by. So 60 times 1 is 60. I have this one exponent, so I'm going to place one more 0, so my answer is 600. 60 times 10 to the second power, 60 times 1 is 60. I have 2 as the exponent, so I'm going to place 2 more zeros behind the number 60. Then I know my answer is 6,000. 60 times 10 to the third power, well, 60 times 1 is 60, so that's what I'm going to start with. And then I have to place 3 more zeros behind it. 1, 2, 3. And so my answer is 60,000. And then last, 60 times 10 to the fourth is going to be 60. And then I'm going to place 4 more zeros behind it. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's going to give me a product of 600,000. And then here's where you can pause the video and attempt to do number 5 if you want to copy that down for extra practice. Okay? So let's continue on with this worksheet. And if you look at number 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, these are basically the same thing that we just did up here. The only difference is it's written horizontally, which is fine. In this scenario, we really don't have to worry about rewriting the problem because there's not really much to multiply. It's not like doing the standard algorithm, which we'll get to in a later video. So 84 times 1, we know, ooh, that is not going to show up. Let me get a different color, so sorry. 84 times 1 is 84, right? Because I'm multiplying it by 1, so it stays the same. But I have 2 zeros that I have to place behind it. 1, 2. So my answer, or my product, is 8,400. Here, for number 7, we've got 90 times 10. Now, I know what you're thinking. Oh man, that looks like a big one. I don't know how to solve that. Well, you do. Because 9 times 1 is 9, right? And then I've got 2 zeros, 1, 2, in both numbers. So I know that 90 times 10 is 900. That's one way of looking at it. Or, if I erase this, I can say 90 times 1 is 90, but I have a 0 here that needs to be placed somewhere. That goes behind it. So my answer is 900. Okay? Now, here's where you can pause the video and you can attempt to do number 8 and number 9. And then I'm going to go through them and check them anyway. So let's look at number 8. 54 times 10 to the second. Okay, well 54 times 1 is 54. Okay, but I have 2 as the exponent. 2 as the exponent means that I have to place 2 zeros behind the number 54. So that means my product is 5,400. Same thing here. But look, it's got our exponent first and then our number that we're multiplying by. So 12, you have to kind of do it backwards. 12 times 1 is 12, but I have 3 as the exponent, so I'm going to have to place 3 zeros behind 12, and that's going to give me a product of 12,000. Okay, so what I want you to do is, this is where you can pause the video, and I want you to copy down, if you want to, and attempt to do 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. Okay, so they're simple. So after you pause the video, I'm going to go ahead and complete them, but I just want you to see. So 45 times 10 to the third. Okay, so same thing we've been doing. 45 times 1. We're going to start with 45 because anything times 1 is itself. But I have an exponent of 3, so I'm going to place 3 zeros behind the number 45. That's going to give me 45,000. Okay, here it's looking for the exponent. There's a little blank there that you can't see next to the 10. Well, I've got my answer 220,000, and I've got 22, and I know 22 times 1 is 22. So all I have to do is count my zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4. So my exponent is going to be 4. So 22 times 10 to the fourth is 220,000. Sorry, I'm going out of order. I'm going down the row instead of across. And number 14, it's looking for the exponent as well. I've got 374 times 10 to the blank. It gives me 37,400. Well, I've got 374. I've got 374. Let's look and see how many zeros we've got. 1, 2. So I know my exponent will be 2. If you look at number 11, 10 to the first power times blank is 12,960. Okay, well this 1 right here represents this 0 that's at the end. So really, if I take that 0 off, I know that my multiple is really 1,296. 10 to the fourth power times 30. Okay, well here's where I can go back up here and review. 30 times 1 is 30, but then I have to place 4 more zeros behind it. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, comma. So that gives me 300,000. And here we're looking for an exponent as well. We're using the number 70. We know 70 times 1 is going to be 70. So I'm going to draw a little line to block that off. So how many zeros did I have to place? 1, 2, 3. So that means that exponent is 3. Okay?